And so it begins. First plane, first flight, delayed. We made our connecting flight in Dallas and were asleep at Motmo's house by midnight. The next day we had lunch with an old high school friend of Lisa's, and then dinner with Danish friends. We left the next afternoon after dinner in the Detroit airport. Our flight was an hour late, giving Birgit time to play solitaire. After a pit stop in Amsterdam for Lise, we arrived in Copenhagen amongst green fields and wind turbine farms and underwater highways, finally making it to Motmo's apartment around noon. The first week there we had our 26th wedding anniversary, so of course Birgit took us out for dinner where we had a wedding party way back in 1997. Taking the train into Copenhagen. First time. Trial run. Preparing for Friday. It was a fun test run and we only had to change trains once. On the way. And an incredible dinner at a 340-year-old Michelin star restaurant. 7 courses over 2 hours. This is 3 of them right here. Way overpriced, but a fun experience. On train number 1, head to Sweden, Stockholm. Train number 2. Number 3.
No more trains.
No more trains. We dumped our bags and immediately went out for a beer in Stockholm. It says Dad. Walking through the old town, we found a Texas restaurant, complete with Willie Nelson and Texas flags. I had another beer. In the harbor was a U.S. Coast Guard ship. Here's a panoramic of the main square. We wandered around, found a stainless steel building, had more drinks at the hotel rooftop bar, and enjoyed the sunset view from our room on the 9th floor. The next day was a long tour of the Royal Palace. And the Royal Treasury. Ending with the changing of the guards. Then a traditional Swedish lunch followed by the Nobel Peace Prize Museum. Then wandered around again. Nice wide alleyway. Seeing a few weird things. In a hotel on a boat. We really enjoyed Stockholm, but it's just another big city with old buildings. Plane number 1.
Oslo.
We had a 3-hour layover in Oslo on our way to Tromsø. Plane number 8. It was nice to see snow again. The island is elongated south to north with a single running mountain right down the middle. So since it's in the Arctic Circle and frozen more often than not, they simply connected each side by tunnels and even have a big roundabout in the middle. It's actually brilliant. So we made it to Tromsø. This is the view out our window in Tromsø. It's pretty cool. Once again, we were on the 9th floor, which was kind of weird, but the view was amazing. So we are in the largest city in the Arctic Circle on the planet, except for one somewhere in Russia, but nobody really cares about that one. Tromsø. Tromsø. The largest city in the Arctic Circle. There was snow everywhere, probably coming in on the airplane. Lots of it. And it's just a little bitty, not little bitty, but it's just a Scandinavian town, city. You gonna contribute?
No, you said it all.
And now we're going to the northernmost brewery on the planet. We stayed at the place for almost 2 hours and met a group of Americans who were waiting to get on a cruise ship the next day to go even further north. With what? Great dinner that night, followed by a photo session in our triangle-shaped room just before midnight. This was as low as the sun ever got. Walking on a long-ass bridge over the fjord. The view is pretty cool, in a weird sort of way. It was very windy and almost a mile long. We arrived at the gondola straight across the bay from our hotel. The photos here speak for themselves. Did I mention it was windy? That's our hotel. I love this shot of Lise. At the Troll Museum. It was a virtual reality mirror you just stood in front of, and the virtual troll would cover your face but move with you at the same time. It was weird but kind of cool. I want to see if you'd wear sunglasses.
Oh, it doesn't wear sunglasses. It's not wearing, I'm not getting.
My reindeer dinner. Tromsø is a very cool place we'd be happy to go back to someday. Maybe even in the winter. There was even more snow on the peaks during our flight down to Stavanger, but became very green as we approached the coast. We rented a car for 4 days and went straight to the hotel. Stavanger is the oil capital of Norway, but all we really saw was a quaint little harbor city with a colorful walking street. The hotel was kind of lame and only had 5 floors, so no more 9th floor rooms for us. Stavanger was nice, but there's really no reason to ever go back. As much as we love Tromsø, I have to admit this was the single most memorable day of the trip. In less than 5 minutes from the hotel, we were in a tunnel going directly under the city of Stavanger before popping into daylight for all of 30 seconds and then entering the world's deepest tunnel under sea level, the Fast Tunnel, for an incredible 9 miles. It was the ever-ready battery of tunnels as it just kept going and going. It was really cool, and in barely 45 minutes from the hotel, we arrived at the Pulpit Rock Base Camp. Our room was not ready as it wasn't even 11 a.m. yet, so they let us store our bags and we changed clothes for the hike. Ready? Getting there. 10 minutes up. Comes straight up really steep at the beginning. A lot of people way overdressed, quite a few way underdressed. Some too old, some too young. But we're just getting started. It started out very steep with both of us breathing heavier than expected. It settled down after a bit and the heat was tough. Less than a mile in. How long has it been?
35 minutes.
Oh, geez, that's not bad at all.
35 minutes, we've ascended 543. We timed it bad with all the buses.
No, we didn't time it at all.
No.
It took a solid hour and 45 to make it to the rock, but was absolutely worth it. Amazing is the first word that comes out of your mouth, and it only gets better from there as you begin to look around. Holy shit. We're almost there. Yes, it was crowded, as the pics show, but 2,000 feet straight up from the fjord is as cool as it gets. Lisa actually got nervous a little close to the edge, but she stuck it out for all the proper photos. Well, I came up to the very top, then I couldn't find her, so I had to come around the end, and there she is. Wish I could get her to wave. Hey, Lise! Not gonna work. This is absolutely amazing. Quite the cliff. About half an hour down, we stopped for a light lunch at the small lake where some people were actually swimming. In a weird way, it was romantic, and I'm glad we did it.
Smiling.
With our feet killing us, we made it to the bottom and went to check into the room, only to find out our reservation made on booking.com had put us into a tiny room with bunk beds and a shared bathroom. You can guess our response. After a little persuasion and a very nice and patient barception girl, we were upgraded to the nicest room in the lodge, which is not saying much, but one hell of a lot better than bunk beds. Sometimes it indeed pays to be a persistent American with attitude. Quick showers and we headed down to dinner, which was one of the nicest of the trip so far, very unexpected. After dessert, we took a short walk to remind us how much our feet hurt, and then headed up to the room. A room with no TV, I might add, to update everything and enjoy the tiny bugs coming in through our open window. The next morning, the lake looked like glass, providing an amazing mirror for photos. We'd return there in a heartbeat, but only if we wanted to do the hike again. We left by 9 the next morning with people already starting their hike. And then the road turned sketchy. Oh, we're almost down to the valley floor.
Got you that on. Here we go. Now you're going to do these little S's.
A lot of turns.
I know, that's why I was like, I wanted to get all this.
I mean really twisty, turny. Don't know the name of the town, but as we're driving down into it, we knew we had to get on a ferry. We said, I wonder if we'd have to wait. We were the last car on the ferry. Absolute last one. That's cool. Yeah. We were over in 15 minutes and immediately began our tunnel tour, beginning with a corkscrew, never turning any direction except left. Sort of like NASCAR. We came out at a ski area and saw our first waterfalls before entering a 4-mile-long, perfectly straight uphill tunnel. And then the real waterfalls began. Or so we thought. Right here next to the road. Holy shit, that's dramatic. This was just simply absolutely amazing. So we stopped and had a hot dog. Now here was the real thing. The Voringsfossen Falls, Norway's most famous and largest waterfalls. Words simply can't convey the enormity of these things. And this bridge, holy shit. Pretty cool bridge. It was very loud, so I thought I was being funny, but somebody screwed that up. From there, it was an hour over the top of the mountains and into our place for the night, which it ends up was under construction and we were the only occupied room. We had to go into town for dinner and settled for a quick trip to the grocery store and dinner in the room. Next morning, it was on to Oslo and a pretty easy drive. We returned the car and took a taxi to the Oslo hotel. This is the third hotel with at least 9 floors we stayed on, and the third hotel in a row where they've put us on the 9th floor. Weird. We immediately went wandering around enjoying the scenery and stumbled across a military wedding at a castle. Ending up at a really nice restaurant on the water, watching the ferries go back and forth. Just your average Friday afternoon in Oslo.
Concert.
Heading east around the harbor the next morning, we found not only where our boat leaves tomorrow, but the Oslo Opera House. It's an amazing place to walk around on top, but we didn't bother to go inside. Come on, it's an opera house. Then we headed literally right next door to the Munch Museum and spent the next 2 hours learning about the artists we knew basically nothing about except for the Scream painting. Next we hopped on a train to the Vigeland Sculpture Park, which is unusual to say the least. The Kama Sutra sculpture. Every position known to man and woman. A lot of people could learn from this. No, that's not what I meant. Then a tram back east to the Royal Palace, which we discovered had been closed since the pandemic. From there we stopped at Ergo for a drink and snacks thanks to our free coupons from the hotel. Watching first the Scots and then the Norwegians as they marched for a huge Europe Cup match that night. Scotland won at the very last minute. We could definitely spend more time in Oslo. Top level, 11th floor, not the 9th. Commodore class. In the corner, very nice for a ship this size. We even had a little deck with chairs and champagne in the fridge. This time we have a deck. Not a very large deck. But see, if this puppy starts to go down, we just jump on those boats right there. We'll be the first ones on. Actually, Lisa would be the first one on. I'd be second, but that's the Munch Museum where we were yesterday, up on the very top. There's the big Opera House building. We headed outside on our deck to watch the Oslo shoreline as we pulled away from the dock.
I like the marching sound of leaving the port. I wonder why they play that music.
To be dramatic. They just sounded the all clear.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start moving.
See our hotel.
No, because a few buildings block it, but this is where we spent the last couple of days. Mainly in this harbor right here.
Beep.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, excuse me.
No, that wasn't me. That was the boat.
Sure, yeah. That's what they all say. We had snacks and spent a good hour just looking around as we slowly pulled out into the open ocean. This ship averages a whopping 20 miles per hour for a 19-hour trip, so it goes nowhere fast. But then again, you can hardly feel like you're moving at all. Still really cool though. Who put that there? I know why, but yeah, that's relatively hypnotizing.
Have to go look on your laptop. See what it says.
Yeah, it's a little bitty island. I mean, That's all she wrote. We went to the dinner buffet with 1,000 Asian women, then found a quiet bar where we played 4 consecutive games of video Yahtzee on a really cool tabletop and had a few rum drinks. Weird night of sleep, but we were both wide awake by 7, just in time to see Stonehill from a far distance off to the east. We put on the last of our dirty clothes and went down to breakfast, and for a brief moment we could see the Hamlet Castle as we passed by the closest point. Showered, dressed, packed, and hung outside, watching the countryside slowly pass by. We arrived exactly at 10, and by 10:15 we're standing outside waiting, or should I say hoping, Birgit would arrive to drive us home. We were going to take the train, but she insisted on driving, even though she has no cell phone and wasn't sure where she could park to pick us up. Half an hour later, we jumped into a taxi. It ends up she had gone to the wrong dock and never would have found us in the first place. But all in all, I loved doing the overnight boat. It was really fun. Lise was able to do quite a bit bike riding while we were there. These are some of the deer forests that she drove through, that she rode through. I don't know what the hell she was doing here. But it's very pretty. There's the deer. And then she went riding with Michael. That's Michael right there. The one who took him to Tour de France last year and is doing Italy this year. And she had some small rides and some really big rides. This one was really cool. And I love this photo. One afternoon we drove up to the cousin's summer house of Klaus and Janet. It's something we seem to do every trip now. It's a beautiful little home. One of Birgit's best friends, Judith, it's her family. It looks directly across at Sweden. Not that you can really see from this picture, but with the storm coming in, they're going in. Don't ask me why.
22 degrees. What's Fahrenheit?
How much?
22.
Oh, that's mid-70s. That's really warm water. I mean, if you're used to ice.
Not that cold, but
Sure.
it's cold.
Sure it's not. There's Klaus. He's already out. Hell, they seem to enjoy it. Not something I want to do. And then the clouds rolled in, and it was the first real Danish rain we'd seen the entire trip. But it was really fun for Birgit to be able to spend more time with Judith. Made the whole day worth it. We did the obligatory trip to Tivoli to visit Charlotte, Peter, and Jill. And the roses were really great, so we took some really nice photographs with Birgit and Lise and the roses. We went up to Gilleleje, did our annual flower planting at Pier's gravesite.
Are you kidding me doing this?
It always feels good to do it. Then we went over to Thomas and Shanetta's summer house.
Show some balls. I know you don't have any, but show some.
She can't.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
The second I turn the camera on, you give up.
And now she walks around. What happened? What happened?
You lost, girl.
It's my ball. It's my ball. It's my game.
You lost. That's what happened.
Shanetta's sister had come over. We went for a walk out to the beach 5 minutes away.
It's pretty much the longest day of the year. Even those 3 days passed. It's Friday and this is when they celebrate it. I should probably go catch up.
Ziggy was great at walking backwards. I thought it was funny.
The lone traveler.
We stopped, had a little coffee, little drinks, took some great photos.
This was the hotel I came to the very first time I came to Denmark. January of '97. And it was for Pier's 70th birthday party. And we flew in that morning, had the party here that night. I was jet lagged, didn't know where I was, what I was doing, but that was my first impression of Denmark. It was very misleading, but in a good way.
We spent the rest of the day just hanging out at their house, and same thing the next morning. And then it took a 5-minute walk to Thomas's parents' house. Really nice. Had a great visit with Christian and Madeline. They just bought a new place, and we'd been with them last May in Mykonos. Then they took us out to dinner at a Korean barbecue place with one of those robot waiters. It was weird. Funny, but weird. Nice people. The next day we had lunch at that Michelin star restaurant with, she's 105, that one right there. And then we went over to a castle that Birgit really wanted us to see, a sculpture that a friend of hers' son had made, but we couldn't get in. Yeah, 33 days is a long time to be gone from home. But it was fun to finally visit Stockholm, and Tromsø in the Arctic Circle was a very unique experience. And like I said, Pulpit Rock was one hell of a highlight, as well as driving around Norway and seeing the fjords and the waterfalls. Oslo and the overnight boat were both worth every penny, or kroner. But nothing will ever top hanging with family and friends for a few weeks at a time, along with the 94-year-old mom and mother-in-law. So now it's on to the UK Oktoberfest and biking in Tuscany this September. Thanks for watching.